So with that little background from for R, let's get into chapter 2, overview of data mining process. So here we're going to look at basic steps. Though they are all very important steps, the rest of the class is going to be more focused on methodology of analysis. Okay? But these steps are important, so let's go over those. I'm going to follow your textbook quite closely. Okay, so this is how the textbook is arranged, the topics, and we will follow the same sequence. So the topics covered in this chapter are broad overview of the data mining process. Okay, and the topics would include, and we already talked about some of them, like supervised learning and so on. Then we will have a little bit about data exploration, visualization. Okay, just an introduction. But we will go in depth on visualization in chapter 3. Chapter 3 is just visualization. So we will do visualization in the next chapter. And then we will go over the process of the steps involved in mining. Then there are other topics like rare event sampling. Why do we need rare event sampling? And how do we do it? Okay, so we'll do that. And variable selection and predictive analytics. So variable selection, we will be covering those in the when we get into the model chapters. But we will have a little bit of introduction. And then data preparation, again, we're going to touch upon data preparation, not go deep into it. Okay, and then we will go through the modeling process. So these are the, in broad strokes, the topics covered. So the core ideas in data mining, there are 3 things. One is data reduction. So if you have large database, you have lots of observations, lots of columns, and you want to size it down so that you can use it more efficiently. So that's one core idea, data reduction and dimension reduction. Dimension reduction here is, if you, we're going to look at, so if you have a column that is a factor column, then if the factor, okay, like categories, if there are like 50 categories, then it becomes kind of difficult to handle that. So can we reduce the categories from 50 to say 20 or 25 or something like that? So that's your dimension reduction. And also dimension reduction means, one more thing about dimension reduction is number of columns. So if you have 1,000 columns and it's really too unwieldy, and we want to select, say, the 100 best columns for our purposes, that is dimension reduction. So we will talk about that in chapter 4. Chapter 4 topic is dimension reduction and data reduction. So then data exploration and visualization, and again that's chapter 3. That's again a core idea. And then we have predictive analytics. That's the rest of the, okay, after 3 and 4, 5 is the performance metrics, and then it's all analytics. Okay, so you have in what we call predictive analytics, there are 3 things. One is classification. Okay, you classify, your target variable is a categorical variable, right? And then prediction is when your target variable is a numeric variable and you're trying to predict. And then predicting association rules. So that's the broad outlook. So let's look at supervised and unsupervised learning. Okay, we already talked about this in chapter 1. So supervised learning is when you have a target that we need to predict. Target an outcome variable. Okay, and then of course you'll have data, you'll have training data, validation data, and score data. So you have to understand the difference between the train, validation, test. Okay, so the 3 data: training, validation, and sometimes test data, and then the score data. The train, validation, and test data they will have all the observations will have all the predictor variable values as well as the corresponding target value. Okay, so it's past data. So we know what the target values are. So that's how we can try to fit a model that will closely predict the target value. Okay. Whereas the score data is where the target value is not known, and that's your real life data, future data coming in, and we want to make a prediction. We don't know what the target value is, we want to make a prediction. Okay. So we have data set is divided into training, validation, and then sometimes test, and all of them will have the value of the target value will be known to us. Score data is where target value is unknown. Okay, then you have supervised classification and supervised prediction. So classification will be the case where the target is a categorical variable. So you want to when you develop the model, you want to take each of the train observation and put them in a corresponding box. So you have 4 different values, you want to put them in 4 different boxes, and then see how well the actual target is with respect to what we predicted. And prediction, supervised prediction, is where you're trying to forecast what will be the value of the sales, what will be the revenue, performance, and so on and so forth. So taken together, classification and prediction constitute predictive analytics. Now unsupervised learning is where you don't have a target. Okay, you're trying to group observations together which are similar. So segmenting data into meaningful segments, like if you have a customer database and you want to classify them into similar groups. Okay, so the high spenders and discount hunters and things like that. All right, so segmenting data, there is no target, and the methods or association rules, well, so it's not just that. The finding grouping data, that is one unsupervised learning, okay, which we will look at in the final chapters in the book is associated with association rules. See, another class of unsupervised learning is the data reduction. So we have what is called principal component analysis, where you do the dimension reduction. So that is also part of unsupervised learning because there is no target involved in those kinds of analysis. So association rules, the data reduction and exploration, there is no target there, so that is unsupervised learning. And then visualization, again visualization, there may be a target that you visualize, but then the visualization itself, you are not predicting anything, you're just trying to explore. So that is part of unsupervised learning as well. Okay, so association rules are like, okay, what goes with what? So if X if the person purchased X, then what is the probability that they will purchase Y as well? Or recommendation systems. Okay. If you bought X, then Amazon will give you ads about what are the other things that you may be interested in. So that's the association rule. Okay, now data reduction is again principal component analysis and clustering. These are topics that we will cut. These are chapter-long topics. So principal components is chapter 4. Cluster analysis is I think way back chapter 10 or 11 or something like that. And data visualization, as I said, is the next chapter.